Hello, welcome back to the channel, and this is a channel where we give you reviews, playthroughs, unboxings. We generally like to talk a load of bollocks about tabletop gaming in general. And in this video we're going to be talking about a Bruno Cathala game. We're going to be talking about 5 tribes, and in this game you'll be picking up meeples, dropping them off on certain spots, using the powers of the genies, I think that's how you pronounce it, that will give you special abilities that will allow you to win the game. So in this video we're going to be giving you a very brief overview of the rules. We'll be telling you what we do like, what we don't like, and we'll come back and we'll tell you whether or not 5 tribes is still worth your time and bother. Done it again, haven't I? 7 years, bloody hell, has it been that long? 7 years after this one was first released in 2014. So remember, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to my little channel. Leave a comment in that section down below, and we'll see you after this. Bollocks! So, 5 tribes. How'd you play this game? So first thing you're going to do in 5 tribes, you're going to lay out the tiles in the game in a 6x5 grid. You will then reach into the bag and you'll pull out a load of meeples, and you'll put 3 random meeples on each of the 30 tiles, right? Each player's going to get 50 gold coins and also going to get a bunch of camels that seem to have got the ump, right? You'll shuffle the resource cards and you'll place 9 cards face up next to the board, right? You'll shuffle the gins or the genies or whatever, and there's going to be a lot of this in this video, sort of mispronunciation, so I don't even think I'm going to bother doing it, right? But anyway, you shuffle them and you will put 3 of them face up next to the board, right? You stick all the palaces and the palm trees next to the board, and away you go. You're going to be playing 5 tribes. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to bid for turn order, right? Everyone's got one of those sort of phallic turn order markers, yeah? Especially brilliant if you've got a pink one. And what you do, you look at the turn order board and you will bid an amount that is listed on the board, and you'll place your phallic object on that space. If you bid 0, then you'll place it on the first available 0 spot, and if somebody else bids 0, then you will be forced back, what the game calls laterally, into the next spot. Yeah, so if you bid 0, somebody else does, you'll be pushed back even further in the turn order, right? So once everyone's finished bidding and everyone's stuck their phallic objects on the board, then you will place your turn order marker into the first available spot on the turn order track, but obviously the person that bid the highest is going to occupy the most lucrative spot. So next thing you're going to do, you're going to move a few meeples around the board. You'll pick up all the meeples on one of the tiles and you will move them to another spot. There's a couple of rules you've got to be aware of in this, is that you'll have to drop off 1 meeple on every tile that you cross. You can't backtrack immediately, so you can't sort of go 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you know what I mean? I knew you were thinking that, you cheating bastard. You can't go diagonally, and also the last tile that you drop a meeple off has to have a meeple of a colour that you're dropping off last, right? So then you'll check to see if the tile is controlled. If there's no camels on it, you'll take one of your camels and you'll dump it on the tile, and that means that you'll score that many victory points. The little number that's on the tile, yeah, you'll score that many victory points at the end of the game. So once you've finished moving all the meeples, then you will take the meeple that you last dropped on the tile and all the other meeples matching that colour back into your hand. You'll put them in front of you, and then after this you will do the tribe's actions. If you've got yellow meeples in front of you, they will give you 1 victory point at the end of the game for each Vizier or yellow meeple that you got in front of you at the end of the game, right? The white meeples are the eldest tribe, and they'll score your victory points at the end of the game, and you can also spend these at certain points to get extra stuff. You'll dump the green meeples or the green merchants tribe meeples back into the bag, and then you'll, dependent on how many meeples you dump in the bag, you'll be able to take that many resources from the available cards. So the blue meeples are the builders tribe, and you'll put these meeples back into the bag, and then you'll gain as many gold coins as follows. You'll count the surrounding number of blue valued tile, including the tile you ended your turn on, and then you multiply this number by the number of blue meeples that you just dropped back into the bag. So this is quite a nice way to get some money for doing absolutely bugger all. So the red meeples are the assassin's tribe. These will let you assassinate a meeple a certain number of tiles away, depending on how many meeples that you put back in the bag, right? So once you've done killing off meeples and you've been done drawing some ancient benefits, then you'll take the tile action. You look to see if there's a palm tree or a palace on the tile, and then you'll put the respective token on the tile, and if it's a palm tree, this means it's an oasis, and these will give you a certain number of points at the end of the game. And if there's a palace, you'll dump one of them on there, and these will also give you a certain amount of points at the end of the game, right? So there's also the small market icon, and what this means is that you can pay 3 gold coins to pick one resource card of your choice from among the first 3 visible cards on the row. And then there's a large market, and you'll be able to pay 6 gold coins to pick 2 resources. There's also the sacred places. This allows you to pay either 2 elders, which are the white meeples if you can't remember, or 1 elder and 1 slave to take the djinn of your choice from among those visible. And what you do, you'll put the djinn in front of you, and you'll have to look at a little cheat sheet that tells you what they do. So you might have Baal, and each time someone gets a djinn, you'll collect 1 gold coin if it's you, and 2 gold coins if it's your opponent. You might have Letter, and this allows you to take control of 1 empty tile and place one of your camels on it. Or you might have Nakir, and each time an assassin kills 1 meeple, collect 1 gold coin if you did the killing, 2 gold coins if the opponent did, right? A lot of these genies do reward quite nefarious activities, you know what I mean? So you've also got the opportunity to flog a few of the resources that you don't really want. And then you'll do a bit of clean up, you replenish the roll cards and do some other crap that I can't be asked to talk about, you know what I mean? So the game ends when somebody has dumped their last camel on a tile, or if no more legal movements are possible. And then you'll add up your victory points on one of those really irritating score pads that everybody hates so much. So you'll get 1 point for each gold coin you own, you'll get 1 point for each Viziate yellow meeple that you own, plus 10 victory points if you have the majority of meeples. You'll get 2 victory points for every white meeple you got. You'll get the sum of victory points from your djinns. You'll get a sum of victory points from all the tiles. 3 victory points for a palm tree on your tile. 5 victory points for each palace on your tile. And you'll also get the sum of victory points for each bit of merchandise that is different from all the other ones that you own. So once you've gone through that really exhaustive list that I didn't quite manage to say in one breath, and you have got the most victory points, then you will be the winner of 5 tribes. So what do we like about 5 tribes? So the first thing that we really like about 5 tribes is the amount of variety in the djinn tiles. There are a couple of expansions for this, I can't remember what they're called now, but they had extra bits and pieces. We haven't got any of them because we thought that this was enough for us. So there's 22 djinn cards at the box, and they all do different things. Like I already said, that a lot of these do reward doing a little bit of stitch up, and if these djinn cards didn't have that aspect to them, then this game would be just sort of one of them multiplayer solitaire games. So the fact that you could call upon these ancient mythological beasts does spice the game up and allow you to put the boot in on at least one occasion, you know what I mean? So the second thing that we really like about 5 tribes is the randomization of the setup. Not only are you going to be randomizing the tiles every round, so you're going to end up with a different board, but you're also going to be throwing out a random load of meeples onto the board. So no 2 games are going to be exactly the same. Obviously the mechanics and the way the game works is going to be the same, but you're not going to be able to lock down a strategy that works continually. You can have this overriding strategy that you could develop, right? But in each game, the way that the randomization works, and also something else we're going to talk about later on, prevents you from finding out a best path through this game and then following that path every time you play it. So the next thing we really like about this game is the bid for turn order mechanism is really quite novel, isn't it? It's not as good as the turn order mechanisms in, say, a game like Cyclades, but it has that same sort of thing, and it's the same designer, funny old thing, right? So we really do find it interesting is that if you bid 0, then you might be pushed back even further. So saving your money and bidding the least amount possible is still maybe detrimental to your intended purpose, right? So that's really, really interesting, and it's sort of a case of the only way you can really guarantee your place on the turn order board is by bidding a stupid amount of money, and that is really, really interesting thing about this game. Yeah, maybe you don't think so, but I do, right? So the final thing that we really like about 5 tribes is, again, Days of Wonder have knocked the ball out of the park with the component quality of this one. It is absolutely amazing. The phallic turn order markers are top notch. It's wonderful, wonderful artwork, and loads of meeples, big chunky palm trees and all that sort of thing, and it does look absolutely fantastic on the table. So yeah, you can't fault Days of Wonder. I mean, maybe this was one of the last big hitting games that they produced. After this one, there hasn't really been that many Days of Wonder games that make you sit up and think, bloody hell, that looks really, really good, doesn't it? I mean, since Asmodee bought this lot out, it's really sort of gone downhill from here on. So yeah, this is sort of like the last Days of Wonder game that really made me sit up and stop watching EastEnders. Not that I watch EastEnders You know what I mean? So, what don't we like about Five Tribes? The first thing we don't like, why do I keep looking over here, about Five Tribes is the fiddliness of picking up the meeples. So every time we play this, someone always scoops up the meeples in their pincer like grip, and they fly out the hand, and then they end up knocking meeples over. They end up knocking meeples on other tiles, and then you can't remember which meeple went where and where it came from, right? So that is a major problem with this game. You've got to be very, very careful that you're not going to be playing a really chaotic dexterity game with the old meeples, because it could screw the game up completely. Yeah. Second thing that we don't like about Five Tribes is the downtime is really, really excruciating. Not because it takes a long time to take your turn ordinarily, but because there's so many different paths that meeples could take through the tiles. It takes 1,000,000,001 years for people to analyse the board and then decide where they're going to be dropping their meeples. People used to call this thing analysis paralysis. You don't really see much of this these days because maybe designers have sort of cottoned on to the fact that people don't like it, but this game is really guilty of forcing you to analyse the board or shoot yourself in the foot in a later turn, you know. So the next thing we don't like about Five Tribes is that this game may not suit people that are colourblind, right? Because the colour of the meeples, you've got red and green there, and a lot of people who are colourblind really, really struggle with differentiating between these two shades, yeah? So, because we said Days of Wonder make really wonderful components, why didn't they just turn each meeple into a different shape? I mean, the assassins could have had a sword, for instance, or the viziers could have, I don't know, been wearing some kind of hat or something like that, or whatever. But no, they just dumped in a load of Carcassonne meeples, not thinking about people that are suffering with the colourblind affliction, right? So totally unforgivable in this day and age. And if it ever gets a reprint or a retheme, there'd be no question that they would have to think about that sort of thing, you know. So the final thing that we don't like about Five Tribes is that because the board changes every turn, it's really, really impossible to plan a coherent strategy. There's no real opportunity to say, I'm going to look at that tile and I'm going to move these there in a couple of rounds time. I'm going to maybe get that genie to help me do that, because by the time your turn comes around and you get to implement that, the board has shifted and that strategy has gone. It's a bit like pissing in the wind, you know. So to summarise, is Five Tribes still worth your time and bother 7 years after it's first released? And we're going to say maybe it's a take it or leave it game for us. We do enjoy it, don't get me wrong. It's just a case of one of them games where the theme doesn't translate into the mechanics that well. There is a variety of paths to victory, like you could concentrate on maybe getting the majority in the viziers, or you could maybe concentrate on getting loads of different resources, or maybe just double down on your camels, maybe hope that a few oases come your way, right? But this is a curse as well as a blessing, because where the board shifts so often during the game, your strategy is going to be changing and you're going to have to analyse the board every turn because it changes all the time. Add to this some questionable content with the old slaves, you know. I mean, for goodness sake, Bruno, what on earth were you thinking? Did you not think that people weren't going to have a problem with this? I think that content has been removed from a subsequent printing, but even so, come on, man. It's a pretty poor design decision. Having said that, Five Tribes is it's an average game at the end of the day. I mean, I much prefer Istanbul for this sort of thing, you know, picking something up, dropping off stuff along the way and then doing what it says on a tile. Istanbul is a bit better than this one. So there you go, that's Five Tribes. Remember, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to this channel. Leave a comment in that section down below. I'll see you next time.